Wallace Corporation was formed in 1994 to consolidate several agri and associated businesses, including some that had been operating since before the Second World War. In 2008, the corporation began a composting operation, driven by the fact that there were large quantities of paunch grass available to them. Chief Executive Graham Shortland explains.
We're an environmental business in many ways. We're always looking for ways of dealing with waste streams where we can save cost or create more value, and so that's really our focus. There's new waste streams that we are spotting when we're talking to our supplier customers. We see ourselves as providing a service for food processors, large and small, where we can go around and collect supposed waste streams. We don't view them as waste streams, we actually look at them as products, and how do we create maximum value to pass back to that food processor or the food industry more generally. The business goes back really to 1994 in terms of the formation of Wallace Corporation. So James Wallace has formed Wallace Corporation, which brought together a number of unique but interlinked businesses from meat processing, tanning and rendering, and dairy farming operations. We've subsequently sold the meat business to focus on that co-products sector. But the deep origin of the business goes back to 1939, where Sir James's father bought a boiling down works, which was located on the site where he was dealing with casualty cows. So our deep roots are really in that agricultural farming sector and supporting the food industry, even back in 1939. We have a big investment here on our environmental, our infrastructure and our people that run all of that. There are always challenges, but it's a part of the business that we believe we run exceptionally well to avoid any issues. We've got a lot of consents, a lot of resource consents to operate this business. If we don't manage those consents properly, then we're in trouble. So that's a real aspect of focus for us, is manage that environmental part. When we look at the business, we say we've got three flywheels. We have our rendering business, we have our tannery business, and we have our compost business. And I've talked about how we are providing a service to the food industry. Well, compost is very much part of that service. So across those three flywheels, we're providing both individual sort of services to food processors, or it's across all three of those flywheels. Now, compost is important because from particularly beef processors, the undigested paunch contents from cattle needs to be dealt with, and the most economic and environmentally sensible way to do that is to make compost from that what we call paunch grass.
The main component into the compost is paunch. There are many local participants in the meat industry, and I mean abattoirs, slaughtering healthy animals for either meat export or domestic meat product. And paunch is the undigested grass from those slaughtered animals. And the meat industry needs to ensure that that's safely put somewhere as a waste product, so they can either landfill it or put it direct to land. But the Biosecurity Act 1999 says in there that it prefers the paunch to be composted. And it's really important. There's so many nutrients in that paunch that the animals have eaten but not digested through their bodies, that we can turn into compost and put back onto the soil. There's been a major focus on the chemistry of soils for many decades, but the compost enables microscopic breeding of beneficial bacteria and fungi, and it's about getting that movement happening and that breeding happening, combined with when you apply compost. A lot of people are beginning to understand that it's really important to retain water in our soils, and compost or organic matter allows that to take place. The inputs into the compost are paunch, DAF sludge from the meat plants themselves, which they're wastewater treatment systems. Those biosolids come up to the top and they're skimmed off, full of nutrients and full of bugs to make the decomposition happen. We have here from the tannery at Wallace Corporation's tannery unit, some food from Hamilton City. As the cities grow, it's really important that we offer that service to take away the waste rather than, again, putting to landfill. We need those nutrients back on the land. The carbon is untreated sawdust, providing the carbon element and nitrogen from the paunch to ignite the decomposition process. Accreditation and quality standards with large-scale commercial compost operations like this are actually very stringent, particularly when you're dealing with the dairy industry and the kiwi fruit industry, who need traceability. And the Wallace compost, I'm proud to say, is compliant to both the ISO 9001 2008, which is a quality standard for process, and with that we also get compliance to the New Zealand composting standard NZ 4454. Now the key thing about that is we are able to, each row that you see here is traced from production. It's all chemically and biologically tested, microbiologically tested and physically tested for contaminants, so the screening is so important. And that can be traced to a farmer's dairy paddock, pasture or cropping, and same with a kiwi fruit orchard or any other orchard. Through the composting process, which is thermal decomposition, so there's the heat element. You've got to raise the temperature of the compost to at least 55 degrees for the first 3 days. And we have a quality assurance manager here who tests for temperature and moisture weekly on the rows up until 28 days of production. And so it's like a natural pasteurisation, but you need to keep it not too hot so that the bugs are alive to decompose the materials and spit out organic matter. The key thing is that compost enables nutrients to be plant available, because that's what we eat. And for example, compost is just like soil. It contains both macro and trace elements, and by that I mean big ones, macro being calcium, magnesium. They're very important. But with compost you also get trace elements like boron and zinc, and then of course the other chemical element is carbon. So those macro and trace elements are vital for the whole process, from soil, plant, animal, and then our nutrition.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.